Hi there, Doug Greenwald again with the Convergint Technologies Advanced Solutions team. And as companies continue to develop their return to work strategy, one area of discussion that has received a lot of attention, similar to my previous video with FLIR regarding thermal cameras, is migrating the enterprise to touchless access control. In an effort to continue to educate and bring companies up to speed on the basics of what they will need to achieve their outcome, I've asked Brett Mason with CrucialTrak to join me today and help take you on a brief journey of the evolution of biometrics and what it will take for your enterprise to be successful going with a touchless entry strategy. Now, before we address the topic at hand, I did want to share with you to keep a watch on the Convergent newsroom and LinkedIn pages for additional videos upcoming, including a FLIR update on their new EST product line and a review of the video analytics being brought to market to perform people counting, mask, and social distancing compliance. Brett, thank you for joining me today. If you could, just share a brief background about yourself as well as CrucialTrak.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me, Doug. I serve as the Director of Channel Sales for the Americas region at CrucialTrak, and I've been with the organization for about a year now. Been in the IT channel for the past 20 years, working for different manufacturers in the wireless world, the power world, and also telephony and command control. Obviously, those technologies cover the security industry as a whole as well, so I'm quite versed. And I live in the Omaha Metro with my wife and 3 boys.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for making time today. Now, speaking ahead of our time together, you and I have both been very busy discussing touchless access control inquiries from organizations looking to remove points of contact, like existing touch biometric readers and keypads that have been a long time standard. Can you take a moment to educate our audience and walk us through the evolution of biometrics and how that has influenced the technologies available today?
Yeah, sure thing, Doug. It's interesting when you look at biometrics in general, they actually date back to the 1800s in France. That said, most of the movement and shakings occurred in the last 20 years. The more advanced computing technologies evolve, then the ability to utilize biometrics has evolved with it. And I think one of the biggest influencers to biometric use is the need for increased security and accuracy when it comes to the physical security world. You could argue that the convenience is also a big influencer as well. After all, with the use of biometrics like fingerprint and facial recognition in your smartphones and tablets today, and even your laptops, biometric usage has become more and more prevalent in society today. And in regard to touch-based biometric devices, the industry has largely been utilizing fingerprint readers of some sort. The effectiveness of these devices is largely marginal due to the many variables. First and foremost, there's the fact that these devices don't have the best reliability issues simply with reading the fingerprints. And that's largely due to the oils in our skin, lotions, sanitizers, things like that. And then also the lens that the fingerprint camera utilizes will get smudged or murky or even scratched because of what I just said with our skin variables. And then I would also add that it's very easy to duplicate a fingerprint image, and therefore it can be what we like to refer to as spoofed. And obviously that's led folks to investigate other biometric modalities such as facial recognition or iris. And these technologies are more expensive and take a lot of time to deploy and utilize overall. One of the major challenges with facial recognition, again, is accuracy or spoofing of the system. In the industry, we use a term called FAR, F-A-R. It stands for false acceptance rate. And then we also use the term FRR, or false rejection rate. And clearly you want to deploy a technology that has a very low FAR and a very low FFR as well, because that means it's the most accurate, and it really becomes a big balancing act. So with that in mind, a lot of folks started to turn towards the eyes, and the reliability of iris has really long been thought to be unmatched. But the time effectiveness for utilizing iris brings a lot of challenges as well. if you take into account things like the height of the installation or the relatively short distance between camera and sensor for the subject's eyes. So now you have folks asking, okay, what's really good, really accurate at a reasonable investment? And I think that's what's really kind of led us today to the palm vein modality, because it has the lowest FAR and FRR available, and it's almost impossible to spoof. And from my standpoint and point of view, the cool thing about CrucialTrak is in our solutions, we offer all four modalities in our solutions. And on top of that, we're 100% touchless. So obviously that has led to numerous inquiries here with the whole COVID-19 outbreak.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come back to the palm vein thing here in a little bit, but I definitely think that with this improvement in accuracy and being able to really take the card holder and associate them with that personally identifiable mark to improve the speed at which they're detected, I think I'd like the audience to understand how touchless solutions really work. What's the architecture behind it? And how does it achieve really better than those previous generations of touch? And you mentioned some of the variables in human skin and everything like that. So at a greater distance, how does that reliability and faster time to entry occur?
Well, one of the biggest adjustments the industry has had to take is utilizing better cameras and in their sensors. And we've also had to increase the overall measurements, if you will. For example, in facial recognition, we now use an average of 80 nodal points on the human face. And the nodal points are things like the distance between a person's eye and nose, or how deep is their cheekbone. Most manufacturers are now utilizing infrared cameras to differentiate between a static photo and a live subject. And when we use palm vein, we're using a technology that actually maps out the different veins and vessels. So when you start thinking about putting that all together, it brings all new challenges, but the technology that's available has allowed us to continue to advance biometric reading. So for speed and efficiency, different folks have increased the processing power of their readers and the network connectivity to the controllers and servers. And for us at CrucialTrak, one of the biggest advantages to our solution is the fact that our database is highly secured, encrypted, and it's loaded at the core and the edge. So there's no need to speak to the controller before allowing access. And many of our readers have tamper protection as well. So that means if someone were to, say, rip a unit off a wall, the unit would immediately dump the database that's on board. And so it's highly implausible someone could compromise our database anyway, but if they did forcefully remove it, there wouldn't be data on it at all.
Perfect. So if I'm a customer and I'm coming to you and I've got this idea that I want to move to touchless, obviously I'm concerned about being able to leverage that existing infrastructure. What kind of cabling needs to be in place for this? What's the enrollment process? And ultimately, what's the employee experience going to be like so that I can start to plan around not just the expense of the migration, but also the time considerations to gain value from the system that I just deployed. Is there a way you could just walk us through the high level of what to expect when implementing the system? So if I'm, watching this and I want to take my company down this route, I have a better idea of not just the cost, but really the time that needs to be budgeted for this.
The beauty of the back solutions that we offer is that they all operate on industry standard technology. For example, the units support OSDP. We have a standard WEGAN connection to interface with legacy access control. The database is SQL-based, which makes the transfer of records and formatting very simple. And then we do have some certified integrations as well with legacy access control manufacturers. So when you look at the fact that the database, we want to keep it on our system because of the encryption and control. We don't want to move that database into a legacy system. And so rather than have our information, the biometric data, go over to a legacy system, we pull the legacy data into the CruAMS, which is the management system for the BACS units. And so it can be as simple as a copy or paste, or it can be automated in some situations as well. So the enrollment process really becomes very fast. Usually you can enroll a new user, frankly, within a minute. And then as far as actual use of the units, once they're deployed, we can validate an employee's biometrics with under a second.
Excellent. And so, as far as the database to enroll people, what can they expect when they bring employees in to start this process?
Yeah, so from a database standpoint, what typically happens is, because of the encryption and the storage of the different biometric data, we don't want to push our data onto a legacy systems database. Instead, we would pull the legacy access control system over to what we call CruAMS, which is our biometric database and management system. And so, it can be a simple copy and paste from a spreadsheet. And then we also have some certified implementations with other access control vendors where that process is automatic. And then enrolling somebody's biometric is quite simple. You can utilize any one of our readers, or we actually have an enroll station, which is, a desktop system that's set up ergonomically comfortable, if you will, with some templates in place to make sure that we can scan the biometrics in a very quick and accurate fashion.
Perfect. The one thing that you mentioned earlier, and I want to kind of circle back on that, is the idea of using the palm vein as a form of
Right.
identification. You mentioned that it's more accurate and has less of a chance of being spoofed than that of even the
Mhm.
iris. So I'd love for you to just elaborate on why the palm vein, who came up with that idea, and how does accuracy between those two different forms of verification differ?
Sure. So, again, we're going to use the terms FAR and FRR. Again, that false acceptance rate and the false rejection rate. Palm vein is considered to be the most accurate because number one, it has far more reference points that are scanned and used and simply cannot be copied. There's no way, a lot of people, when we say palm vein, they immediately look at their palm lines. We're talking about the vein system, the venous system within the palm. And so it's very complex, and taking a map and image of that, it's very unique to the individual. And I would also add that it's really fast and it's very convenient for the user. There's no issues with distance between, like a iris, having your face being 6 inches from a camera or touching a fingerprint reader. The palm vein's very simple. It's holding your palm up to the scanner, reading the vein, and there you go. But when you look at the FAR and the FRR comparison to, and I would compare it to iris because, the industry for a very long time has felt that the iris was the most accurate biometric to measure off of, which it was. But palm vein really blankets that and stomps that out. So, when you look at the ability to process under a second, the FAR rate of a palm vein reader is 0.0000001, which means there is 1 out of 10 million chances that an unregistered user is authenticated. And then it has an FRR, a false rejection rate of 0.01, or 1 out of 100 chance that the register wouldn't be authenticated. And therein lies the beauty of multimodal biometrics, right? So when you look at iris, and in comparison to that, the FAR is 1 in 10 million, and the FRR is 1 in 10. So you can see that the palm vein has 10 times more accuracy and far less compromise capability.
Very interesting. Brett, this was really helpful information. And hopefully for you, the viewer, this brought you closer to understanding what to expect if you'd like to start to go down the path of bringing touchless access control into your organization. Click the link below if you'd like to get in touch with myself or someone on our team that can specifically walk through your system architecture and dial in the requirements. Until next time, stay safe, wear a mask, and thank you for doing your part to help bring your company and your people back to work safely and responsibly.